And welcome! This is ModelOmega, and you're watching Chapter 6 of Thracia 776. This way, Lord Leaf. Bishop August? What are you doing here? I was making plans to rescue you, but apparently there is no need for that now. You look upset, but I am glad to see you are safe. August, I've never hated the Empire as much as I do now. They killed my parents. They even took away the one person who I could call my mother. I hate the Empire, and I hate that Rydrick who follows its commands to do evil. Tell me, how can I fight against them? I would do anything to get her back. Please tell me, August. Abel has been turned to stone? If that is the case, I'm afraid there is nothing we can do. What do you mean? Is there a way to bring her back? A certain staff called the Kaya can revive petrification. However, Manfroy, the Lopto Archbishop, has sealed that staff, and it can only be used by those of his heritage. What? No! I have heard rumors of a secret Lopto temple in the underground of the Yi Desert. They say that the statues of various warriors are kept there. I have even heard that the statues include the captives of the War of Barhara from a decade ago. I am sure that a Vel statue will be taken there as well. That's impossible! I understand your anger, but those impossible things that you speak of are currently happening, Lord Leaf. Already thousands, no, tens of thousands of children have been kidnapped and taken to Barhara. Areas like Manster and Leinster have been hit particularly hard because of the strong Lopto influence on them. Children are rarely seen there anymore. Are the parents just sitting there watching? Why won't they stand up and fight? Of course they are putting up some resistance, but they are still ordinary citizens. They are no match for the Imperial Army or the Lopto Church. If they are not killed on the spot, they are taken away to concentration camps where they are mass executed. Lopto's mage army, the Schwarzrosen, is especially cruel. If one villager tries to oppose them, the entire population is burned alive. It is almost a reiteration of the Dark Ages. People have lost their will to resist and have become slaves for those in power. How cruel. Northern Thracia used to be a land of blue skies and rich greenery, but now it is covered in an endless cloud of darkness. Lord Leaf, I understand your concern for Revel, but you have much more important deeds to attend to. What the people of Northern Thracia truly need is a hero who can unite them into an army to stand up and fight. And you are the perfect example, Lord Leaf. Being the son of the tragic heroes Suan and Ethlin, you have the right to unite the people. Do you understand? If you stand up, the rebel forces will come together to form a single force that will have the power and ability to drive out the Empire and the Lopto Church. I haven't given up saving Yvel, but I understand what you're saying. If you want me to lead the liberation of North, then I'll do it. Rebuilding Leinster and leading its army to defeat the Empire. That was a dream Finn and I have been talking about for years. August, if you would support me as an advisor, I have nothing to fear. Alright, what should we do now? Yes, I wanted to hear that resolve from you. For now, we must escape. There are soldiers everywhere coming after us. Is there a safe way out? I suggest using the side gate in the east. The problem will be getting through the castle undertown. If a guard sees us, he will call for reinforcements, making our escape that much more difficult. So we have to go unnoticed by the guards. That will be tough. You don't want to go through the city, right? Then I'll carry you one at a time on Hermes. We can fly over the castle walls so no one will notice us. Okay, then we won't have to fight. But will you be okay? Hermes is saying he'll do his best. Pegasi usually only allow women to ride them, but he says he'll bear with us for now. I suppose we can rely on her for our escape. Now, the question is getting through the castle town. Wow, that was a lot to chew on. This game is really dark. And as for this chapter itself, if you've played Path of Radiance, it's actually very similar to the prison escape chapter from that game. Basically, the soldiers will patrol in the city back and forth, and none of the enemies will attack you until they enter your range. And using Karen, you literally could just carry everyone over the walls and end this chapter right there. But it would mean you don't visit any of the villages here, and you want to because they have tons of great stuff to give you, and including a playable unit. And now that we are finally outdoors, all of my knights can ride their mounts. Just don't ask me where Nana, Brighton, and Fergus got their horses. I mean, did they just appear out of nowhere? I mean, at least Karen explains that Hermes is just flying around outside the castle walls, but where did they get their mounts? Oh, well, I shouldn't think about it too much. My recommendation for this chapter is to send everyone at first through the door on the right there, then have Karen carry a couple of people over the wall to the south in the other room there, and then have them both groups go through the 2 doors on the left. This allows you to use the houses for cover against both the soldiers and the knights, as well as the big group of enemies on the top left that will follow you through the northern entrance to the city once you alert any of the soldiers. By the way, I would highly recommend that you do not try to take on that group of enemies head-on. It's a battle you're almost assuredly going to lose. The 2 bishops there have meteor, and they would love to peg your units, and the armors there are holding very powerful weapons, and the general there is a very tough nut to crack. If you do it this way, you don't even have to face the bishops because they don't move, and the boss doesn't move either, so you can just ignore him. I should also point out that no matter what, eventually someone gets alerted to your presence, and you'll start to have reinforcements of cavaliers come after you, and if you take too long after that, eventually Galzus from the previous chapter will show up, and this time he will be gunning after you. You have absolutely no chance taking that guy on. He has basically maxed stats and everything that's important, is holding a master sword, and has 5 movement stars, so even if you're far away, if he triggers one of those, he can close in on you from a massive distance and take you out with no effort. Reappearing here is the convoy, which inexplicably still contains everything you had or put in it from Chapter 3. It's useful in this case because it allows me to arm Brighton and Dawson with an iron axe and not have to waste their uses of the steel or battle axes. By the way, if you're going to use my strategy of moving people over with Karen, remember that mounted units cannot be captured / carried / rescued, so I sent Brighton over and I had to dismount him to do that. Make sure to do that if you're going to send a knight over. I mean, if you're just planning to send Dawson over, then you don't have to do anything about that, but keep that in mind. It sort of pains me every time I look at Makua and just how unabashedly mediocre she is. I really wish her stats were better, because if I do get a good Makua, I do like to use her. I mean, having axes and swords is overall pretty great deal. Mercenaries are good classes in this game. Anyway, coming up is a bit of bugged translated dialogue. And I mean really bugged. So I'm going to do my best to try and explain what the hell is going on in the scene that you're about to watch. Okay, so first off, I should mention if there's ever bugged dialogue like that anywhere in this game, if you go to serenusforest.net, the actual translation is there. It just sometimes isn't implemented properly in this game. Anyway, that was a bit of an interesting scene that actually gives a lot of backstory to Galzus, in that he rescued Merida, and the bishop there, or high priest in this case, is a man named Sias, who we're going to absolutely detest later in this game. Galzus rescued Merida and asked Sias to basically take her away from this place, and then he says at the end, "I never thought I'd see you again." Merida is actually the daughter of Galzus. I don't know if I mentioned this, but Yvette is not actually the mother of Merida, she just adopted her, and Galzus is her biological father, and that's why he saved her. I suppose this also explains why Galzus just leaves the map in the previous chapter instead of going after you once the arena portion is done. Makes sense. And it's because of Sias taking Merida that we don't see her again until chapter 12, if I recall correctly. And I'm just going to speed this next portion up again until I actually have to deal with the enemy and not just get my troops into position. See you back in a sec. noticed there that I had Karen make a quick stop at a shop to sell a fire tome, and that's something I wanted to do a bit, is sell a bit of items, but I completely forgot that, well, as I stated earlier, you take too long on this chapter, bad stuff happens, and was having someone go over there to sell an item, and then Galza showed up. I'm like, holy crap, I got to get the hell out of here, and I had to take them all. It was, oh, you can almost maybe see my alarmed reaction in how quickly I move them. You'll see. By the way, each of these houses here, the red houses at least, those are the ones you can visit. Each one corresponds to a different child you rescued in 4X. No, I do not know which one corresponds to which. I could never remember that. Just, if you didn't rescue all of them in 4X, just restart the chapter, because they're all good except for the Holy Water one. The one on the top actually gave me a rapier. This is usually a Lord-specific weapon in Fire Emblem games, but in this game, anyone can use it. And it retains its same properties. It's effective against armored units and horse units. It has a good critical hit chance, but in this game, its might is rather low. In fact, it's the second weakest sword in the game, not counting broken swords. Only 1 point of might higher than a slim sword, but its effective bonuses sort of cancel this out. And of course, this being a game where there are pretty much no unique animations for different weapons, it does silly stuff with the rapier, like it being swung like a saber instead of stabbed. I mean, that was something that Mystery of the Emblem did right. When Marth attacked with a rapier, he stabbed people, because that's what you do with a rapier. But when, like, social knights or cavaliers use it in this game, they slash people with it. Guys, you'd get pretty much the same response by hitting someone with a stick. And predictably, now that we've attacked the soldiers, these guys start coming after us, which represents a bit of a pickle. The mages are again your biggest concern, but be wary of the axe armors because they have the battle axe, and as I said earlier, it's a pretty dangerous weapon to be up against. The mages in this part are so dangerous because all 4 of them have L fire, which does mean that they're slow as balls and can't really dodge you, but it does mean that they kind of hit like a dump truck. I mean, they'll even 2-hit kill Karen, who has pretty respectable magic for resistance, mostly because her HP is so low, but keep that in mind. I'm also going to note that because your knights can be mounted again, they get their original stats back as they're no longer lowered from being forced to fight on foot. Brighton, Karen, and Nana get the biggest bonuses with a stat boost to pretty much all of their relevant combat stats, like a 2-point defense boost for Brighton and Karen and an extra 3 movement for all of them. But Fergus only gains an extra point of strength, defense, and 3 movement. And that's actually not him gaining more stats from mounting, as it more is losing less stats from dismounting, which ties into the fact that the Free Knight class is basically just a mercenary on a horse. This part of the chapter is why I recommend you go around the wall on the right and come in the village this way. It allows you to funnel all these troops into 2 or 3 rows, depending on whether they'd like to go through the top or not, and it allows you to deal with them one at a time, the armors at least. The mages, maybe 1 or 2 will get a pot shot in at a time. It's a real big help, trust me. As you would expect, these armors are very slow and have basically no magic to protect themselves. Asphalt can take these guys out with no problem, with either thunder or fire magic. Just remember to actually have Asphalt use the magic ring and not just have someone hold on to it in this chapter. Really makes a big help, something I should have done and probably would have saved me a bit of frustration. Anyway, if you're going to do the funneling strategy like I suggest, your best bets for it are to use Fergus and Brighton. You may think Dawson would be a good idea since the armors here can't really do much to him, but he can easily get picked apart by the mages. 2 hits and he's dead from either of them. At least Fergus and Brighton can dodge. I mean, they'll get 2-shotted as well, but they actually have speed to evade attacks. And this house in the top left here, where I'm going to have Makua go, contains a playable unit that you can recruit. Hey, I was waiting for you guys. I heard you saved Mayfie, my son. Thanks to you, I was able to hide him in a safe place along with the other children. I'm Hicks, an Axe Knight of Manster. I was thinking it was about time to teach that Rydrick a lesson. I'll fight alongside you. And just like that, we get our second and final Axe Knight of the game, Hicks. Hicks is honestly nothing special. He's got good stats, better than Brighton's in my estimation, and he does have better growths. He starts with a halberd, which is basically the hammer equivalent for horses, and it's going to be super useful in the next few chapters. The main problem with Hicks is there's really nothing special about him. He doesn't have any skills or a unique weapon or a good PCC. He's just the amalgamation of an average unit. By visiting this village, you receive a Knight's Proof. Knight's Proofs are basically the master seals of this game. They're used to promote every single unit in this game except for two, Leaf, who has a story-related promotion, and another character later on who also sort of has a story-based promotion. It may be a little tempting to buy weapons from the armory here if you're a bit low, but I'd hold off unless you really have to, because as you've seen, weapons are really expensive in this game, and there's a couple shops at some points that sell very rare items, and you really want to save up for those. Speaking of saving up, I'd be very cautious about who you use your Knight's Proofs on. You get a whole bunch in the next few chapters, almost overkill, but you only get about 10 or 11 in the whole game, excluding one shop very late where you can buy them. Only specific classes really need to promote in this game because the stat caps are only at 20. I would say that if it's a knight, unless it's someone like Finn or a unit you'll get later on, you really don't need to promote them because they don't really gain anything for it. Characters like sword fighters and mages gain the most for promoting because they gain a skill continue as well as really great stat increases. When it comes to the appropriate time, I'll go over for specific characters whether I feel it's worth promoting them or not. These mages coming over the top of the buildings here is a bit of a concern, but thankfully Karen is in a prime condition to at least weaken them for other people to take them out. But you should be extremely wary of the bow armors here. Bows deal bonus damage to Pegasi, and pretty much any of them will kill them in one hit, so make sure you stay out of their range. Unfortunately, Karen can't make enough extra movement after attacking the mage to get out of the range of one of the bowmen, so I can't really use her. So I have Hicks go up and do it instead. In case you were wondering, all of the mounted units in this game have an ability that is collectively referred to as Canto in the Fire Emblem verse, mostly because it was a specific skill in Radiant Dawn that only applied to mounted units. It allows you to use your remaining movement after performing any action, attacking, trading, opening a door, etc. etc. Damn, did you see how much that Hellfire Tome hurt? Like I said, these guys will 2-hit kill any of your guys, so make sure you have no more than one of these guys attacking you at once if possible. This is the kind of opportunity where I absolutely bemoan the fact that heal stats can miss, because if it did in this situation, almost any player would kind of be crapping their pants right now at the thought of that Hellfire Mage coming down and killing Hicks afterwards. Also, speaking of Nana, I just remembered that I completely forgot to mention the skill that she has. It's Charisma, which is one of the best abilities in this game. It provides a 10% boost to attack rate and evade rate to all of your allies within a 3-space radius in the shape of a diamond. It's a small bonus, but it's absolutely invaluable in that just little extra bit of chance to reduce the chance that, well, you'll die in this game. I mean, anything like that helps in Thracia 776. Fergus is quite close to leveling up here, so I wanted to give him the Baldo Scroll to hold from Leaf, but he also had kind of lowest HP, and, well, I mean, he didn't have a Vulnerary on him, so I couldn't have him move forward and heal. The only real thing I could do was try and trade him with Leaf, but he didn't have one either, so I did this for some reason. I have absolutely no idea. I mean, having Fergus in this position opens him up to attack from a mage or a bow armor. What I should have done is have Fergus trade with Nana, use the Vulnerary, and then use his Canto to move him to where Leaf is standing, and then have Leaf go in between them and give him the Baldo Scroll. That made so much more sense, but, well, I guess sometimes you really have to think these things ahead. And the onslaught begins. In hindsight, I think it would have made more sense for Brighton and Fergus to switch positions. Brighton's stats are not as great as Fergus, but his Wrath means that he can deal much more damage to these guys without wasting additional uses of the sword or the Armor Slayer. Luckily, the enemy doesn't really understand tactics that well either. I mean, at least it's less than mine. I mean, it just keeps moving non-range units into places where range units could take additional shots at my enemies, and in doing so actually forces the Hellfire Mage to attack Hicks at close range, which will pretty much kill him instantly. Ooh, Brighton's in a bit of a tight spot there. No one is really equipped to help him aside from Aspel, and there's still that armor there to deal with. I think I'm also going to count Hellfire in that list of tomes, which look like they should deal much more damage than they do. I mean, Hellfire has a stronger might than Meteor in this game. And it's a freaking pillar of fire. You'd think that would, like, incinerate people or something, but it just does a fair amount of damage, I guess. I end up sending Asshole to kill the armor here, and in hindsight that was kind of a bad call. A better idea would be to have Brighton take the armor out, retreat to get healed by Nana, and then have Dawson kind of just hold the gap a bit. Or have Asshole take the mage out and pray that one of the armors doesn't go over and one-shot him. But things work out this time because Karen is there to help, and this time she can move far enough away where Fergus can block the bow armors from taking pot shots at her. By the way, Karen is definitely a unit I would strongly consider giving a Knight's Proof to. Less for what she gains from the promotion, which is admittedly okay with a Lance rank and a good promotion gain, but more for the fact that Karen is the only flying unit you're going to get until Chapter 14. In that chapter, you get two. One is really awesome, and the other is pathetic. The fourth and final flying unit in this game is in an alternate route, so you may not even get her. So if you want at least two good flying units, Karen is pretty much your only option for the second pick. Essentially, my reasoning just comes down to promote her so you can at least have her with good stats, because she's definitely going to have troubles with strength and defense, and her promotion does give her 2 in each of those, which is actually pretty good as far as promotion gains in this game go. And also, Karen does start with an E in Lances, which you don't really get to build up because you spend the first 3 chapters you have with her in a place where she can only use swords. So if you want her to be able to use higher rank Lances, you're probably going to have to promote her. If you've sort of noticed, Dawson's usefulness has kind of waned a bit in this chapter because now that it's no longer a kind of enclosed indoor area, his low movement kind of puts him at odds where he can reach areas where he would be useful. This situation here sort of ties into what I was saying earlier about Makua kind of being pointless at this area of the game. I mean, she can basically do nothing to these armors. She can attack them twice with an iron sword, deal no damage, and pray that one of her hits is a crit so it can do something. Or she can attack with the iron claymore, deal a little amount of damage, and then get destroyed on the counterattack, because the iron claymore weighs her down so much that she loses all of her evade. Luckily, there's always Leaf and his trusty light sword, or the fire sword, to deal with armor such as this. Although, I have finished the recording for Chapter 8 now, and Leaf has now used up over half of the uses of his light sword. If this kind of goes up, I may actually have to use a repair staff use on it. And that's actually kind of hilarious when I think about it, because it just shows that, hey, Leaf's light sword is actually pretty useful, I guess. Damn, with a level up like that, I guess giving him the Baldo scroll was a pretty good idea. Again, as you've noticed, you should try to capture as many of the axe armors with battle axes as you can. They really are great weapons, and once you get your guys up to a B rank, you're going to want to have them with the best axes they can get, which are probably going to be these for a majority of the game. And I've just noticed that I've gone past 25 minutes, so I think I'll call it quits for this part of the chapter. I'll see you guys next with part 2 of chapter 6. And then hopefully chapter 7 and 8, as I've finished recording for those and just need to add my commentary. See you guys all later.